So there's counting down right now, DJ.
Thank you. It is slow.
I wasn't teasing.
5 minutes.
I'm going to make sure my cell phone is silenced again. You watch me do it though. Yes.
Oh, does he do that?
Dun, dun, dun.
I can find his CDRs in my phone. Oh, I can find him online. Never mind. I'll just pop him right here, and then I can just follow along.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. I see we have a quorum. If everyone please take a moment to silence your cell phones so we don't get interrupted during the meeting. And then join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a business meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The town hereby welcomes and encourages public participation. Individuals addressing the commission shall direct all remarks to the commission as a whole and shall refrain from addressing individual commission members, town staff, or members of the audience. Pursuant to Arizona Open Meeting Law, the commission is limited in its availability to discuss or take action on matters raised during the call to public. The commission may, however, direct staff to review the matter and place it on a further agenda for consideration. Items that are scheduled on the current agenda will not be heard or discussed during the call to the public, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. I don't think we have anyone for the call to the public, so we'll work on the consent agenda. C1 is consider approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission regular minutes held March 12th, 2026. Has everyone had an opportunity to review?
I'll make a motion that we accept the regular minutes of March 12th, 2026.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I have a second.
Good. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That passes unanimously. Item C2 is to consider approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission work session minutes held on April 9th, 2026. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion again to accept the work session minutes from April 9th, 2026.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay. Having first and second, please raise your right hand if you agree. All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you. On to, let's see, new business. Public comment will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item. After the subject has been announced by the chairman and explained by staff, any citizen who wishes may speak once for 5 minutes on each agenda item before or after the commission discussion. Questions from commission members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the chairman at any time. And we do have a couple. I will say one thing. Items D1 and D2 are fairly similar. So if we have someone who wishes to speak on both, they can speak on both during the first agenda item.
I think D2 and D3.
Did I miss it? Okay, D2 and D3.
One is we.
That's right. Okay, thank you. So correcting that to D2 and D3, you can take the opportunity to speak during D2, unless it's specifically only to D3. Okay. Having said that, we have Rachel Hendricks.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rachel Hendricks, and my family and I own the White Mountain Family Fun Park. I am standing here tonight because this is now the third time a representative from our park has stated on the public record that we are formally requesting a safety buffer for the youth corridor. We have warned this commission repeatedly, and while we appreciate that a buffer is finally being considered, the proposed 500-foot rule is a dangerous loophole for our specific location. I want to speak directly to the comparison being made between dispensaries and gas stations like Maverick or Circle K. We've heard the argument that gas stations are just as dangerous as dispensaries. But on Saturday, April 4th, I was the one personally assaulted on my own property. I was struck by a large object thrown with force by an individual under the influence of marijuana. This person was part of an out-of-town group whose behavior was so aggressive and inappropriate that we had to intervene just to protect the families and children inside our park. This isn't a statistic or a theory for me. It is an active criminal case with the Pinetop-Lakeside Police Department. This incident proves that we are already dealing with the intensity and impairment that follows this industry. To compare a family park's neighbor to a convenience store ignores the physical safety of my patrons and the reality of the violence I experienced. A gas station has a high volume of transient customers stopping for 3 minutes. A dispensary is a high-security adult-only, destination. It is a cash-intensive operation that requires armed guards, state-mandated ID checkpoints, and high-security vaults. If the industry itself requires prison-grade security, the town must provide a corresponding buffer. You do not see armed guards and bulletproof glass at a Circle K or a Maverick. Even if you believe these businesses are comparable, the math doesn't work for our geography. There is approximately 1,200 feet between our park and Lions Camp Tatier, which serves the most vulnerable special needs children and adults in our community. A 500-foot rule leaves a 200-foot landing strip right in the middle. You are effectively zoning a high-intensity dispensary to be sandwiched directly between a fun park and a camp for disabled kids and adults. 500 feet is not a buffer for us. It is a green light for a developer to sit right between two protected populations. Don't vote for a loophole. To actually protect the kids at Camp Tatier and the families at our park, the buffer circles must overlap. Only a 750 or 1,000 foot buffer ensures that an adult-only business isn't sitting in our backyard. Please do not let a flawed comparison to a gas station be the reason we failed to protect our children. Thank you.
Have any questions for Rachel? Yes.
We actually skipped item D1, which is the selection of a planning and zoning chair and vice chair.
I did, didn't I? Okay, went right to the other one. Okay. Why don't can we continue with the call to the public and then revert back to, since we're on a roll here? Yeah, okay. Do we have any questions for Rachel? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. And with the continuity, are we okay to do that?
I'm sorry, say that.
Are we okay to move, just continue on with the call to the public on D1, or D2
This
rather?
is not called to the public.
I'm sorry, the public hearing on D2?
Yeah, I think so, because you've already started it, and then after that, let's go back to.
We'll go right back to D1, okay, very good, apologies. Next up, we have Robert Ingalls.
I'd like to speak after I hear discussion.
That's fine, but we'd need to revert back to D1. My error was I needed to bring up D1.
Actually, it won't be on D1, it'll be on D2 and D3.
That's right, but we'll have to postpone your comments until, if you want to wait until after the discussion. So I made a procedural error in starting D2 without addressing D1.
Right. I'd like to hear some discussion and then make the comments, and I have some notes and some...
Fair enough. Okay, I'll call you back.
Thank you.
Chairman Wesley, I think what he wants to hear the discussion after Frank presents, and then you guys discuss, then he'd like to be called up.
Fair enough, okay. Okay, so we'll move back to D1. My apologies, everyone. So D1, discussion and possible action regarding the selection of a planning and zoning chair and vice chair. That's important.
Are we not finishing the public hearing on D2?
Shall we?
I'm so confused.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we were going to go ahead and finish that item.
Let's do that. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Come back.
If please don't let me forget.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, so would you like to present D2?
E2, and this is a
Medical marijuana.
public hearing discussion considering regarding amending the town code 17.102, the medical marijuana. I'll get D2 here.
Is this one?
It's that one. I was one ahead of it.
There you
Okay.
go.
So I'd like you guys to discuss the amending of the code for medical marijuana that currently reads for a dispensary square footage of 2,000 square feet. What we would like to do on that is increase the square footage from 2,000 to 4,000. The reason for that is for medical marijuana and recreational, the building has to be separated into two parts. A 2,000 square foot building is not sufficient for the type of business. And that's the only reason for the increase on that.
And if I remember correctly, Frank, the request from the developer was to go to 3, and we're just increasing it to 4. Is that correct?
Go to 4. They were requesting like 3,200
Okay,
roughly.
okay. Very good.
So you guys go ahead and discuss that, and then we'll make a recommendation there.
Shall we open up the commission for discussion? And then we'll, yeah.
Okay. My opinion is if the developer was seeking the 3,200 square feet, I think the 4,000 is reasonable. I've stated before, I think that this is a extremely viable business for the town, and therefore we should accommodate and raise the square footage to the 4,000 square feet. We need to send a signal that we are interested in the business in the town of Pinetop-Lakeside.
Can I ask a question? Is it sold that it has to be in this location? Or is it just anywhere within Pinetop-Lakeside city limits?
They're still looking for property.
Okay.
The property near the Family Fun Park has been, the seller doesn't want to proceed with that. So that's pretty much out of the picture.
But the minimum building space that they are requesting is the 4,000 square feet.
They're requesting roughly 3,200.
It would be the max.
The max would be 4,000.
Question, Mr. Chair. So D2 and D3, one is for recreational, one is for medical. And
That's
we're
correct.
just discussing the two. And they, by state law, they have to be the same. The ordinances have to be the same. The code has to be the same. Okay. We can't go one for the other. It has to be the same.
It has to be the same because it's a dual dispensary.
So,
It's basically both of them in one building, and that's the way they'd have to operate.
And the town's only allowing one in the town limits, so it's going to be a dual license dispensary. That's why it's on both of them.
and there are no other areas, if, say we go to 1,000, because it's dangerous, is there any other areas within the town that could be that 1,000 feet?
As far as the setback?
Yes.
We're only discussing the square footage.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that was,
That's correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right now, this one, we're just looking at the square footage,
Oh.
but that would apply to both.
yes.
Yeah. Then when
Well-
we get to the other one, we'll discuss
Okay.
the setback distances.
Just because in D2, it said be located no closer than 500 feet, so yeah, it's, okay. I personally feel that 4,000 is justifiable. knowing that we'll get it, there'll be a reputable company that comes in. It's coming in, so I think 4,000 is sufficient.
Commissioner Katie, you were right. So there, that is also an amendment on here as well.
Okay.
D2?
For the distance, yeah.
So D2 is medical, D3 is recreational. It's the same, it's the same thing, but one's for recreational, one's for medical. So the question is are there areas in the town of Pinetop-Lakeside that can match the 1,000 feet if that's what we so suggest to the town council?
As far as the setbacks go?
Yes.
1,000 feet from a school.
Uh-huh.
It is 500 from any family-oriented type of business and a church,
Yes.
and 250 from a residential neighborhood.
That's what it is now, or what we want to, what the town wants to suggest.
The town is going to add that 500 for recreational businesses.
Okay.
But the original setback for schools, churches, and neighborhoods.
So my understanding is the Family Fun Park would like 1,000, would suggest 1,000 feet. All right? That company does not want to come into that area. They, as I understand.
Yeah.
Are there other areas in town that could meet that 1,000 feet if we recommended what the Family Fun Park wanted?
Very tight,
So
almost unlikely.
So 1,000 feet is kind of unreasonable because we're going to have one. So,
It would pretty much probably just shut the thing down.
okay. Gotcha.
So we need to change it from 1,000 to.
But right now, all we're discussing is the square footage of the building.
No, but the, 0.5 is, the first one is medical, the second one is recreational. It's the same exact thing, but one's for recreational, one's for.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. We're only discussing
It
the
is
square
on both,
footage of the
it
building.
is on both, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Yes.
If you look at the changes that Frank recommended in the code, it does also talk about the setbacks on this agenda item as well. So we're talking about the square footage allowing, the allotment allowed for the building size, but also the setback.
Also the setbacks, okay.
Yes.
So
Sorry, all
Oh,
right.
yeah, no worries. We're coming to understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Frank, how many feet from the Family Fun Park to Camp Toddy? Is that what extends the original proposal?
I don't know the distance between that. It's roughly 1,000 or so.
That site is dead though, so we're not
Yeah,
talking
so
about that site anymore.
they're not considering that site, so.
Frank, I think I asked this before, and I think I know the answer, and the state does not mandate any setbacks associated with dispensaries, is that correct?
They do for schools and churches.
They do for schools and churches, and that's it?
We're way above the state's requirements.
Okay, and that's a town choosing?
That is the town choosing. That's-
Okay.
I think if we set the goal or the mark, what we're doing is setting the mark so that anybody can come in and go, this land meets this criteria, we can move forward. And I think 500 feet is reasonable. I think 4,000 square feet is reasonable. I think 1,000 would be not good, so.
Yeah, I concur. I'm good with the 4,000. I think that based upon what you said, Frank, that if we went to 1,000 on the setback, that it would be extremely limiting. I don't want to be extremely limiting. I think 500 is sufficient. Frankly, I don't know that you need any, but 500 is fine.
Just so you guys know for reference, the Arizona state law is 500 feet from schools, churches, and daycares.
Ours currently is at 1,000 though, correct?
For schools.
Or
For schools,
preschool,
churches
kindergarten,
is 500.
Yeah, that's what
secondary
I-
schools, yeah.
And this one says 1,000 feet of residentially zoned property.
Are you looking at the town code?
Yeah, I'm looking in the town. Oh, maybe this is 17.102, .030. Well, that's the cultivation, medical marijuana cultivation locations.
That's cultivation.
That's for cultivation, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
dispensary.
Not the dispensaries, okay.
Any other comments so far? Questions?
Are we talking like a 1 acre minimum lot to be able to put in a 4,000 square foot building with 500 feet setbacks?
You know, that's what they're looking for. I think they could probably build it on a smaller lot,
Okay.
but they're the ones that are doing the developing, so.
Yeah, I'd like to actually make a comment before we make a motion. So thought about this quite a bit. So we're not here to approve or deny any particular project or react to requests made by individual project applicants. We're here to make recommendations to the council to define the rules by which development occurs, right? So those rules should reflect the identity of Pinetop. Family-oriented, community-focused, and intentional in planning its growth, not reactive. And I feel like we're being very reactive when we see an applicant come and say, ooh, we got to change that to fit, right? Once those rules are clear, development will either fit within them or it won't. And that's how we ensure fairness, consistency, and frankly, integrity long-term. So that's what I need to say. Any other comments or questions? I think Mr. Ingles wanted to come in.
But you also need to declare a public hearing.
Okay. So with that, get back to that page. So public, this is, I need to read the new business and public hearing or just declare it's a public hearing?
Just declare this is a public hearing, and then anyone who asks to speak on it can speak up, and then because it's a public hearing, if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on it, they can. We'll just have them fill out a form afterwards.
Okay. So we'll just go ahead and make this a public hearing, and anyone who has already submitted a card can speak now, and then afterwards, if anyone else in the audience would like to speak, please do. And I'll call Robert Ingles at this point.
Thank you, commissioners and staff. Robert Ingles, Penrod Lane, Pinetop, Arizona, longtime resident. Looking over this, I have some concerns, and it goes beyond just the recommendation of the 500 feet from the family-type businesses in the community that are stated in the recommendation here. I wanted to bring up, and maybe it could get clarified to me by somebody here tonight, the thought that the 250 feet setback from an exterior wall of the dispensary wall to an exterior wall on an adjoining residence that would be not on the same property, but a 200-foot distance. It seems that the wording, in my opinion, would be from the lot line, in that if you have commercial property abutting residential property, and the residential property hasn't been built on at this time, if a person is holding on to that and in the interim period a dispensary were to get built and they're 50 feet off the residential property line, there's no restriction on how close the structure of a dispensary could be to the property line if it abuts a residential property, other than a yard setback, which I believe is 20 feet in the C1 zoning. So it would seem that the way this is worded right now, that in both this agenda item and the next item, would create a restriction on that property owner who had intentions within the zoning maybe to build a residential setback building, that this, in my opinion, is going to be restricting on the future use of the adjoining residential property. And it's said in here multiple times where it states that, I'm sorry, I made some notes on here, to be conducted to the nearest exterior wall of the closest residence not located on the property in which, okay, that was a cultivation. But that's part of this ordinance. And it's a little different on the dispensary to residential. But I hope that would be discussed tonight, because I think that the way this is worded is encroaching on residential properties requiring that 250 feet. So whether staff or you as a commission could address that issue, I think the 500 feet would be the minimum acceptable. I looked at Taylor, Snowflake ordinances, and they have not to be within 500 feet of residentially zoned property in their ordinance. And I think when I looked at Payson's ordinance, again, this was Google, I didn't have a hard copy of it, it was also the 500 feet from residential. And I think that's an important thing for our town. We're a small community, and a dispensary, whether it's recreational or medical, I think is going to be new to the community. I also noticed that in Taylor Snowflake, they have a 1,500 square foot dispensary statement with a 3,000 square foot maximum if they have both the dispensaries on the same site. So I'm trying to feel that we maybe need to be considering what other local communities are. The 4,000 feet without a minimum lot size, also we allow a lot as small as 6,000 square feet in our C1 zoning, and to have a 4,000 foot dispensary on a 6,000 square foot lot would be, in my opinion, a pretty sizable footprint with not much setbacks from the surrounding businesses, and that would be a concern. So as you would move ahead tonight, if that could be addressed, the concern that I'm expressing.
I know, I've heard it.
Go ahead. Before you finished?
Yes.
Before you go to, Frank, I would like to maybe clarify whether or not it is prohibitive for someone to build residential after the dispensary is in place.
I was looking at the reference that
my reading implied that.
Yeah, it does. I thought it said exterior wall of the dispensary to the lot line.
To their lot line.
It does say the exterior wall of the structure, so he does have a valid point there.
Okay, but just one point is to clarify whether or not someone who comes in and has a vacant lot, a dispensary comes in, there's no building to measure against. So the next door neighbor behind that, but that would not prevent the residents from building.
What could be used in that case is the property setback for the building. So typically your front property, rear property are 20 feet depending on. So if the measurement from the dispensary wall to the setback line of the property or the building was in excess of 250 feet, it'd be fine because
From the
it wouldn't
setback.
meet, right.
So that would need to be an amendment to town code as I read it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we could.
Okay.
And that brings up another question, since we have to live within setbacks. That changes the ability for the building to be a certain size, which you mentioned that our C1 is 6,000 feet. And you deal with 20 by 20, that takes a big chunk out of it, and the building can only be so big. So he's bringing up the question of the lot probably should be a certain size to meet the setback.
To meet the setbacks of the, right. Yeah.
So that's a great question, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, you can go ahead and sit down unless anyone else has questions for Frank. I'm sorry, Rob. Given this discussion, I mean, I'd love to see just taking it kind of in order here, that we go either to the proposed amendment to the town code would include to, at very least, the setbacks, or to the property line. I mean, I kind of like the property line to make it distinctive, right? So in a proposed amendment, that would include the property line, right? And then, just given the current character of Pinetop, I mean, I love the idea of 1,000 feet from a family-owned oriented business. And I think I like the language I think that you have in the proposed, iPad keeps on closing here, the recommendations to include, so I would replace the 500 with 1,000 feet from a facility devoted to family recreation, entertainment, including, et cetera. So I like that language, but I'd love to see that be 1,000 feet. And then, not, again, being reactive to a particular applicant, I think we need to look at the status quo with the 2,000 square feet in that proposal to amend. And then.
So let me clarify this
Yeah.
really quick. So you, in this particular area, this particular section, you want to add the family component into the 1,000 feet of a preschool, kindergarten, elementary, high school?
Right, so his language
Okay.
is here in the recommended motion.
That's already a recommendation, and it's
Yeah.
number 2 under the recommended.
That's
motion.
right. And then finally, I mean, I love the discussion we've had about what can we fit on a parcel. Well, if they're trying to cram even a 2,000 square foot building on a tiny parcel, and since having this discussion for the last few weeks, I've driven by Consume and Sholo multiple times, and boy, everyone's right. There's a lot of people parked in there. So I think maybe we need to define what adequate parking is in that town code, because we don't need people trying to spill over, going in neighboring lots or what have you. I mean, I don't know.
The adequate parking is defined in the code for the square footage of the building.
So that is specific.
That would be specific.
Specific to the square foot of the building based on the commercial code. Okay. Do you happen to know right off the top? And I didn't know that, but do you happen to know that right off?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Okay. So without looking it up, do we know, would that be adequate for a business of this kind to accommodate the parking? Because I mean, I would say, just on a driving by, I can say there's 30 cars in there
I would say a minimum of an acre
of parking.
land for the size of building.
A minimum of an acre. So is that something that we also need to define, or is that just going to be taken care of in the code related to commercial?
I think our code that defines parking spaces would take care of it.
Okay.
Maybe it will make you feel better, Vice Chair. The set of plans that they turned in originally for when they wanted to go into the family fun, over next to the family fun area, which is not happening, they had ample parking in that space, and that was an acre lot.
Yeah,
For that size of building, for the 3160, they're going to ensure that they have enough parking for their building. So with meeting the setbacks and having the parking, if you look through Pinetop-Lakeside, there's not a lot of properties that there's a lot of places to overflow park at anywhere. So they're going to make sure they find a lot that works for them and they have ample parking, or they're just not going to get the business that they want.
Right, and then they're going to have issues with neighbors. Is just what I'm trying to consider here is that if there's ample parking. So then, given that we already have that in the town code related to commercial businesses or commercial property, my suggestion to the commission is to consider a motion that includes that delineation from a property line, the adjoining property line, right, the neighboring property line, as opposed to a fictitious building or even a setback, and then 1,000 feet from a family-oriented business. Just given the character of Pinetop, I think that's pretty important. And then Again, just not being reactive to any particular applicant, I don't think we're in danger of being prohibitive by saying, we have 2,000 square feet allotted. If they need to store off-site or what have you. But, I mean, the town code has been in place already for a good cause. I mean, there's people prior to us that have written the town code for a good purpose, and I know that the town, that the Planning and Zoning Commission has indeed been tasked with planning and zoning, right? So, I mean, that's something, at some point, we need to look at all those in chapter 16 and 17. But that's just in due course of review, not in reaction to business. Say, hey, we might want to come in. Right.
I'd like to add something to that.
Yeah.
So the 2,000 square feet was the size that the state put on there when they started this whole thing with the medical marijuana dispensary. The average size of a dual marijuana dispensary in the state of Arizona is 4,000 to 6,000 square feet. That's the reason for the ask of larger. So we're asking up to 4,000, so we're not even asking for the 4,000. It doesn't mean they're going to build 4,000, because what they turned in for just a proposal was 3,100. But the 2,000 square feet's not viable for really a dual licensed dispensary. If you look across the state of Arizona, the average size is 4,000 to 6,000. 2,000 was just an arbitrary number that the state put in, and most cities and towns are changing that.
Okay, so if we're looking at making a recommendations that's intentional with regard to the character of the town, that 2,000 foot limit was adopted from a state ordinance related to medical marijuana. Is that right?
I don't know if it was just on the medical or just on the recreational, but I don't think it was specific to dual license.
Right, so there wasn't this discussion that said, hey, we want to limit this to 2,000 feet for a particular purpose.
When the state wrote them, they were separate. So a lot of dispensaries are finding they can't come in and do a dual in a 2,000 square foot with as much storage as they need and keeping them separate.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. I think, if it wasn't intentionally adopted in Pinetop, so then I'd just say then, to go with state allotted, or rather industry standards than 2,000 feet. I still love the idea of, or rather 4,000 feet. So just speaking to the commission in discussion, 1,000 feet from a family-owned business is something I think we ought to hold to, and then obviously the property line, which is something.
Yeah, I disagree. I think the 1,000 is too restrictive. I prefer the 500.
I have a question. This line says, shall not be 500 feet from a facility devoted to family recreation or entertainment, including but not limited to movie theaters, bowling, mini golf, batting cages, and arcades. There is, to me, that gives a feeling of, hey, I'm going to open a store that's dedicated to Pokemon cards, right? Now, my business is a family-oriented business, and it could fall within that thing right there. I think the definition of family-devoted recreation business, if we're going to live to that 1,000 feet or 500 feet, should be defined, because that's open to interpretation.
That's a good point.
There's ambiguity. I agree. I mean, here's what classifies a family-oriented business, right? So, do we need to go through and list out every single? I mean, how discreet do we need to be?
I mean, it does leave it up to some wiggle room.
Yeah.
We're setting the goalpost, and that's what if we're going to go with 1,000 or 500, we need to know what we're making that 500 to 1,000 to be from.
I think that's a valid point. Question for staff, has Attorney Sims reviewed this and made a recommendation on the expanded language in the recommended motion 2?
Our attorney doesn't make recommendations, he just approves the wording and that it's legal.
Okay, if it's legal, but I think given the discussion here, I mean, I would be curious if it would be ambiguous enough to open the door for disputes later on, if that's something maybe.
It may. This is verbatim from Payson.
From Payson, okay.
So
Well, and you know, I love looking at other towns. I mean, it's great, you know, to say, hey, what are other people doing? It doesn't mean that we need to be
Now,
limited in our
I
creativity.
mean, the commission can modify it
Yeah.
any way they see fit.
I don't quite know how to answer that. So if we wanted to reduce ambiguity to an extent that it would make sure that each kind of potential family-oriented business, or could be construed as a family-oriented business, then, you know, how long is that listing to be?
You could probably put in there the occupancy of the business, how many people it serves.
I mean, even like restaurants could be considered family-oriented, right? You know, so I mean, how, and that could be extraordinarily limiting, right?
I feel as if we went to 1,000, we should be very definitive of what we're going to limit that 1,000 feet from. I think if we go to 500 feet, I think we keep the language the way it is right there. That's how I feel. So it'll be hard pressed for me to recommend 1,000 feet with this ambiguity that we have.
Anybody have any other thoughts on this?
I want other people's opinions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that if we're going to have this expansive language, and I think that it's a valid point that this is open to interpretation. I just looked up, for example, on Google family-oriented business, and you know, it's quite expansive in the definition here. So I think if we adopt this language as identified in here, that we maintain it at 500 feet, so that it doesn't become overly restrictive. I think my concern is at 1,000 feet, who knows what somebody could identify as a family recreation or entertainment. So with this language, 500 feet, and to go to the 4,000 square feet maximum, I'm fine with.
You guys could always amend that motion to remove devoted to family recreation and entertainment and just put limited to movie theaters, bowling alleys, miniature golf facilities, batting cages, and arcades. Then that would then eliminate restaurants and a Pokemon card.
Yeah, just side example, you know.
I think it's a great suggestion. Thank you. You know, I like the idea then of maybe removing the family recreation or entertainment. I mean, I love that because that's, you know, from what I understand, that's the character of the town, you know, is that this is we want to be family friendly. But if we moved, if we doubled the distance suggested here in the two, but removed devoted to family recreation and entertainment, and left in including but not limited to bowling alleys, miniature golf facilities, batting cages, and arcades. Is there more in that category that we should consider?
I think you put in athletic activity, I don't know, athletic
fields and parks?
Yes, athletic activities, because I'd be hard pressed to think that a batting cages would ever come to Pinetop-Lakeside. I think you change batting cages to athletic activities, that would.
Athletic facilities, parks.
Yep.
I think we already have parks. Where does that fall into?
I would just remove the batting cages to like athletic
500 feet for that.
facilities.
So that's covered under the 500 feet of athletic, is that right? Did you happen to have that pulled up right there? What item?
It doesn't say athletic facilities, it says batting cage.
It doesn't say athletic.
No, I mean in the town code. You're in 17-102-060.
It does say a public park.
It does say public park, and that's 500 feet.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's covered in the 500 foot.
Worship, public park, or community center.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. And so I almost would say in the town code, that's 17102, is that 059? No, that's 050C on a dispensary. 050C, number 5 is where we're at here. Is that the suggested language to add to the code is, right now is 500 feet from a facility devoted to family and recreation or entertainment, including but not limited to, et cetera, the batting cages, movie theaters, bowling, et cetera. I wonder if we just remove the period after use in number 5, and then remove the suggested language, remove from that suggested language from the 500 feet down to the or entertainment. So we say 1,000 feet, there's the whole paragraph, but it says proposed to be conducted to the lot line of the protected use, including but not limited to movie theaters, or fitted into that paragraph, how whatever would make grammatic sense, is kind of where I'm thinking here. So that reduces the ambiguity, I think, Derek, that you mentioned, but also gives us a good distance from that same category, right? I mean, if we're trying to really look at the category of preschools, kindergartens, elementary schools, to me fall right in line with movie theaters, bowling, golf, mini golf, batting cages, and arcades, right? I mean, that's
No, to me it doesn't. It's more in line with the 500 feet allotted to a place of worship, public park, public community center. So I'm more in line with the 500 feet for those, as opposed to the 1,000 feet has to do more with education centers.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to see it nestled underneath the 1,000 feet. Where we disagree, which is, I love that. This is democracy. That's what we're here for. I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission.
I'd say we stick with the 500 feet.
500 feet.
I think 500 feet is, yeah.
Okay, as far as the recommended motion, all right. And
Yeah, I agree.
with what?
500 feet.
Okay, 500 feet.
Before you guys go for a vote, since it's a public hearing, you can please ask the audience again if there's anyone else who would like to speak.
Yeah.
And if there's not, then you can close the public hearing before you
Okay.
take a vote, please.
Okay, I'm still looking for comments from everyone. I think that
I think with the lot, changing it from building to lot, the line of the lot.
the lot line, but then not considering 1,000 feet.
Not considering 1,000.
But it says that already. The distance shall be measured from lot line to lot line for the properties in which businesses are conducted or proposed.
Oh, I thought it was.
That is
building.
C3.
That's something that we can look at when it goes to council, because everything that we're looking up over here says from building.
Lot line to
Yeah.
lot line is for churches and schools.
Okay,
The building to building is residential.
okay.
Was structure, right? Yeah.
So you'll need to define that. So the motion that we're making right now is just a recommendation to the council, and then staff will have to review that and make sure it makes sense, right?
Yep.
Okay. So as I understand it, the only major change that the commission is suggesting at this point for the motion is the property line. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, yes.
But you guys don't all have to agree right now.
We don't have to
That's
agree.
why a motion gets made, then you take your vote, and then you find out whatever.
Yeah, I would like to have someone be able to read we've had a
Okay.
bunch of discussion here, so if we have, say, hey, I propose this with this amendment, then we can say here or nay, we agree or disagree, and et cetera. So, and then you're saying in advance of making a decision, we should open it up to the
Yeah,
public?
this is a public hearing, so if
Yeah.
anybody, after hearing the discussion, still would like to talk,
Okay.
they can, and then before you take a motion, close the public hearing.
Okay, and I do have another, so we will open this up to discussion, since this is a public hearing. I do have Dave Hendricks, who wanted to speak.
Hi,
Hi, thank you, Commissioners. Dave Hendricks, I spoke with for you guys before. I want to clarify, the reason for what my wife asked was 750 feet. If you go ahead and vote this 500 feet in, it still puts a landing strip, like she said, between us and Camp Tautier, which does no good. So you're still putting that business right between these two, right between two properties that are meant just for kids and adults. I mean, kids and adults for both of them, because Camp Tautier is for handicapped, adults and kids. So we were asking for the 750. 1,000's great, but 750 does it. 500 feet does not take care of that. And so when a kid comes to our park, is he any less important than a kid at a church or a kid at a school? I don't think so. You know, I've said this before. If it isn't 750 feet, they can still go in and put it. And I know that this guy has withdrawn, but that doesn't mean that somebody else can't come in and do it. And anybody who wants it by them, then, you know, have at it. But we, like my wife said, she was just assaulted by somebody that was on marijuana. We're so tired of it, we're ready to leave. And we've invested a lot of money in this town, and we're just getting very sick of it, okay? When we start getting assaulted, it's about enough. And it's always marijuana. So you guys have maybe never had to deal with that. And I'm saying you guys because I'm not addressing one person, everybody, the council. But we're getting tired of dealing with it. We do not want this business in this community. We came from Colorado. It ruined that state. Okay, I came to Arizona, and now everybody in this town wants to give up their morals just for money. There's a lot of other ways to make money than doing this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Hendricks? No? I love the suggestion of 750 feet. Wanted to float that also. We're still thinking the 500 feet?
Are there spots in town that have 750?
You know, 750, 1,000 is pretty much going to limit it.
Okay. And I didn't close the public comment
Sorry,
section.
yeah.
Well, no, my mistake. Still falling into the role here. Okay, so would someone like to entertain a motion? Would someone like to make a motion? There's on the D2 at the bottom, there's the recommended motion, and we can just make adjustments to that.
Are we making the motion on the 500 feet or the 750 feet?
That's up to you, what motion you would like to make. We've discussed.
Motion?
So the recommended motion is on, so if you scroll down to the bottom.
On page 21.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Page 21, there we go. Thank you, Chris.
Do you want my computer? I have it pulled up.
We've got it.
All right, I'll give it a try. I move to make a motion the town council amend section 17.102 medical marijuana, section 17.102.050 medical marijuana dispensaries, no cultivation, only in C-1 light commercial zoning districts, section C as follows. Revise subsection C2 to read, shall not exceed a maximum of 4,000 gross square feet, and amend subsection C5 to add the following. Shall not be located within 500 feet of a facility devoted to family recreation or entertainment, including recreation or entertainment and any sport facilities.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Can I just clarify what you guys, if this is what you meant to say? Because I think what your guys' discussion was to take out devoted to family recreation and entertainment, because that would include restaurants. It was, you were going to take that part out, but including but not limited to movie theaters, bowling alleys, miniature golf facilities, and sporting facilities. Is that
Well, I
what
thought
you
we
meant to do?
categorized sporting facilities for everything, but you're right. Shall not be within 500 feet of a facility.
I think our discussion about dropping that language was if we moved it from greater than 500.
You could say 500 feet of a movie theater, bowling alley, miniature.
Okay,
golf.
bowling, yeah, movie theater, bowling alley, or other sport facilities.
If that's what you guys want.
Christie, also, I think we had talked about a property line consideration as opposed to,
That is not, well,
that's in one of them. I don't remember which one, if it's medical or recreational.
we don't have the lot, we did the 500, because we're doing the 500 feet, you guys could add in there you could, because we're talking about the distance, you could add the wording from the building, in this case, a marijuana dispensary, to the lot line, right?
To the lot line or
Of a residence.
to the setback line of the property.
We discussed both.
The setback line would include if there's not a building there, that would include it at some point.
The setback or.
Okay, 500 feet to the setback line.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it's going to be 250 on residential. Yeah.
To the setback line, okay. Would you like to redo that? That was.
No.
No? Okay.
I'm reading it to you and see if I've got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so we're going to amend subsection C.5 to amend the following. Shall not be located within 500 feet to the setback of a facility devoted to a family recreation or entertainment, including but not limited to movie theaters, bowling alleys, and sporting
Miniature golf,
and miniature golf.
and then sporting facilities. And arcades, sorry, arcades is on there.
Okay,
And we're dropping the family recreation entertainment.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, then we'll do this over again, right?
Okay, so that was a motion.
There's a motion on the table.
Yep.
If you guys agree with that, you'll need a second.
With his motion?
Yeah, they read it back, so, yes.
I second that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. I didn't see yours.
Yeah.
You raised it.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, all abstaining, or all objecting, and let there be 1.
D2's name.
So, shall we move to D1? Okay. My apologies, everyone, for that error.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah, you should have found a letter from Mr. Miller's resignation
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the letter of
DJ,
resignation?
can you announce that item?
Okay, I apologize. So D1 is discussion and possible action regarding the selection of a planning and zoning chair and vice chair for 2026 and 2027. Chairman Miller has resigned, and I'm currently sitting in that seat because as vice chair, the town code dictates that we need to choose a chair and vice chair at this time. So, anybody have any discussions or questions or thoughts?
I would volunteer to chair if nobody else is interested.
Okay, and I would volunteer to continue as chair.
I'll second that.
You'll second?
Yes, and then I volunteer you for vice chair.
For,
I elect you for vice chair.
we were talking about chair at this point.
I know.
What you guys could do is maybe offer why you think you'd be a good chairman, and then let your fellow commissioners have a discussion about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in chairing. I have chaired, been president for 2 HOAs. I'm used to running meetings of this structure, keeping them succinct, keeping them in order. I was president for 1 HOA for 5 years, and the other HOA, it's been 3 years, and I still reside as president of the HOA. The structure of the meeting, the format of the meeting is exactly the same, so it's something that's very familiar for me.
Okay. Do you not have any relationships or jobs or anything like that would preclude you from doing that?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm retired.
You're, okay, very good, very good. Okay, and so you're volunteering to be chair. Okay.
Volunteering to be considered for chair.
To be considered for chair. Love it. Yeah, and I currently hold the position of vice chair, so I wouldn't challenge that. So, anybody have?
Do you want to talk about why you want to be chair?
Vice chair.
Oh, you want to be vice chair?
Just a whole, yeah.
So this is simple.
That makes it simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion. If there's any other discussion.
Any other discussion? Okay, you make a motion to.
Okay. I gotta find this, sorry. I'm all over the place.
You're now on page 18.
Page 18, okay. I make a motion, I move to appoint David Wesley Jeff Stearns as chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I move, do we have to vote on that, or can we do both of them?
You could do it together.
Okay, I move to appoint David Wesley as the vice chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And I second the motion.
Do we have a motion and a second? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Would you like to switch spots for D3? Or would you like to just take the gavel? Here you go. All right. And I think we have all of the... Okay.
Okay, very good. Let me get back up here. Okay, item D3, public hearing, discussion, consideration regarding amending Town Code, Chapter 17.114, recreational marijuana. Frank, you want to take us through that?
Yeah, we've pretty much discussed most of it anyway, but yeah, let me get to it here. So essentially, the only part of this is that section of like the theaters and family. So I think you could make a motion to amend it to say what D2 said.
And keep it as simple as that, make a motion to
Yeah.
keep it in line with the verbiage as adopted for D2? Okay,
We still have to open it up to public.
yeah.
Yeah, it's still a public hearing.
Yep. So let's open it up, the public hearing. Any comments from the public?
Did you have any cards to talk on this D3?
No, we don't have any more cards. I think Mr. McCormick Mr. Ingalls had spoken on D2 and D3 during D2. Is that right?
Yeah, I already spoke on D3.
You had D2 and D3.
I had some notes here for D3. Being recreational is different than medical.
Come on up.
Thank you. Commission, staff, I had a note on the recommendations, and you folks probably see that you have one item there for the recommended motion. I had made it item number 2, and it said, use the words residential property line, not use exterior wall. And I think that was covered in the D2. But I can't help but think that's an important issue for the community that we reside in. And briefly talking with the town manager, she said she could make some of these changes for the recommendation that would go to the town council for them to discuss. So if you're comfortable in what you've done already tonight and plan to do the same thing, I guess that's okay. I would say that sitting through the work session 2 weeks ago, being public and not being able to speak, some of these issues that maybe came up that night to talk about. And I think one of the commissioners did mention about the lot line concern. But to read it in here as I did, I just think that that is an important thing for the council to consider. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rob.
I have just a quick response to that, if you don't mind.
Marita?
Yeah, regarding, this is something I learned tonight, just regarding work sessions and public comment. Like, so in order, no, what the Town Code 17116060 reads regarding wood section, subsection C, in the second sentence says, no call to the public shall be scheduled during work sessions.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair. That's not on this agenda item. We can't talk about that.
Oh, I see. Okay, I thought we might.
We can bring that back at a later date, though.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, then if there's no further public comment, I'll make a motion that we adopt. I'll have to
Close
close.
the public hearing.
Okay, close the public hearing. Thank you. I thought he did the same. There's no further comment. Close public hearing. And I will make a motion associated with D3 that we adopt the exact same verbiage as identified in D2, noting the same verbiage is identified in D2, and just keep it simple.
I second that. Oh, go ahead, Larry.
All right, any discussion on the motion? No discussion noted. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, very good. Any against? One. So the motion passes. Very good. I believe that is everything on the agenda that we had for this evening. Just make sure. Yes, it is. If there's no further comments, we will